Hello and welcome to the 7th episode of the Jedi Guybrarian's Holocron show. Let's start with the setting of this book right now, the planet Kijimi and its capital city. Star Wars books, movies, and shows always try to provide a wide variety of settings. Tatooine is desert sand, Hoth is snowy plains and caves, Dagobah is swampy, Endor's moon is a forest, Kamino is all ocean, Scarif is island beaches, Naboo is lakes, waterfalls, and underwater worlds, Mustafar is lava, Coruscant is lots of buildings in a crowded city, and I think you get the idea by now. Very distinct, descriptive settings in Star Wars. The planet Kijimi in Rise of Skywalker is a planet of mountains. The setting of Kijimi City is high up in the mountains, so it is very cold, icy, snowy, windy, and the city is built around the mountainous area with many slanted cobblestone streets and stairs. It's a great fantasy-like setting that you might usually see in a Lord of the Rings style story, with castles and ancient stone villages built into the sides of mountains. And since Star Wars loves to combine the genres of sci-fi and fantasy, an old stone city like this, high up in the mountains, is a perfect place to suddenly have snowtroopers, Imperial walkers, droids, and our lightsaber-wielding heroine show up. An old fantasy setting with a sci-fi technology twist is classic Star Wars style. This setting is also a good place for space pirates, criminals, and smugglers to hide out. It's in this setting that we meet the character of Zorii. Zorii is part of a gang of spice runners, and she's an old friend of Poe's. We see her briefly in the movie, but the novel does have some extra scenes for her. On pages 130 to 131, after she says goodbye to Poe and his team of heroes, Zorii can be seen sneaking around Kijimi City to find out what's going on with the First Order. Zorii Bliss crouched on the rooftop of the Kozanar Guildhouse, spying on the squad of snowtroopers who gathered at the steps to Monk's Gate. Her left foot slipped on the steep, icy tiles, dislodging a bit of ice and snow, which slid off the roof and plunked down at a snowtrooper's foot. She froze, hardly daring to breathe. The trooper gave a small kick to rid his foot of snow, but otherwise did not react. Slowly, quietly, Zorii reached down to the tread of her boots and flicked a small switch. Her cleats popped out, tiny metal gripping stars that were a lot noisier to walk around in, but they would dig into the toughest ice, keeping her from sliding off the roof. They were also pretty great in a fight. Her perch now secure, Zorii leaned forward to hear better. Wow, what great word choices and imagery to describe the setting and really put you there. Steep, icy, snow, froze, boots, cleats. Another description earlier in the book uses words like ancient, mountainside, twisted streets, slippery steps, and breath frosting in the air. Now, as Zorii is hiding and watching Imperial troops moving into her city, she also sees the Knights of Ren. A tall, black-clad humanoid with an odd helmet and a long cloak swept toward the stormtroopers. At his back were a band of similarly clad warriors. She could see none of their faces, but their weapons expressed volumes. One carried an axe with a long, weighted handle even taller than he was. Another, a giant club. Still another, a wicked scythe. The scythe dripped with something dark and vicious. Not warriors, then. More like butchers. As the black-clad men approached, the squad's officer snapped to attention. "Supreme Leader," he said. Zorii barely managed to hold her gasp in check. The man standing below with his gang of butchers was Kylo Ren himself, the man responsible for all the horror she had witnessed these last months. "Lieutenant Barrack," the Supreme Leader said. His voice was tight and calm, though Zorii got the feeling that he was barely containing his rage. He looked around, almost as though he was sniffing the air. "We have a perimeter around the city," the lieutenant began, but Kylo Ren cut him off. "We're too late," he snapped. "The scavenger is gone." The scavenger? Why was the Supreme Leader of the First Order specifically here for the girl Zorii had just met? Rey was remarkable, that much was clear. That lightsaber, those fighting skills. What had Poe gotten himself into? Well, she would waste no more time worrying about that nerf herder. The lieutenant had mentioned a perimeter around the city, and that was bad for business. As soon as the First Order troopers left Monk's Gate, she'd hurry back to the Spice Runner's den and tell people to... Supreme Leader Kylo Ren whipped out a lightsaber that teemed and sparked with chaotic red light. He slashed it back and forth in a rage, toppling a column of stone, slicing a Niwa oil lantern in two. The snowtrooper squad slunk away from his wrath, but his butchers looked on as though amused. When he was done, boulders and lantern scrap lay scattered on the ground, the melted water pooling beneath them already freezing back up at the edges. She had help, said the Supreme Leader, his voice calm once again. Find them. Destroy them. Zori adjusted her plan. Now, somehow, she'd have to sneak back to the Spice Runner's den, and instead of telling them to cash in on a few favors and open their emergency smuggling routes, she'd order them to get out of the city. That's a great extra little scene there, with Kylo having one of his well-known temper tantrums, Zori using the classic Star Wars insult nerf herder that we first hear Princess Leia use against Han back in The Empire Strikes Back. And speaking of The Empire Strikes Back, there's a great text-to-text moment here. Zori's feeling of responsibility that she should warn other people in the city that the First Order is taking over and they should leave the city reminds me a lot of the scene in Cloud City when Lando feels a responsibility to warn his people that the Empire is taking over and everyone should leave the city as soon as they can. I kind of like that there's a reoccurring theme in Star Wars books and movies about helping others when you can see that there is danger out there. Some of the characters could just take off on their own, but instead they want to risk telling others of the danger too, so that everyone can get to safety. That theme kind of reminds me of what's going on right now in our society and how important it is to look out for each other and make sure that each other have the best information and know how to stay safe. Don't forget to reach out to others. We're all in this together. A few pages later, on 137 to 139, there's another extra scene with Zori where she actually does warn several other people in an underground cantina and an area called Spice Runner's Den. Now everyone, listen up, she told them about the Supreme Leader locking down the city and ordering it turned inside out. He's looking for any Resistance associates, and I'm sorry to say Poe Dameron used to be one of us, and he brought them all to our door, so we have to get out, all of us, right now. Jeroban plunked down into a squishy, threadbare sofa and put his face in his hands. We'll need to scatter, reconvene when things die down. How many ships do we have right now? The Voyan sisters are out on a run, Luda reminded him. They've got the freighter and a support fighter. That leaves 3 ships, Jeroban said. For over 20 people. I could go underground for a while, said Vibbo. I know a place. Pounding at the door, blaster fire that made the whole building quake. Those weren't hand blasters, Luda said, her voice low. A walker just clawed through our front door, said Zori. Grab your go-packs and scatter. Luda, meet me at my Y-Wing. You know where I park, right? The girl's face was frozen with fear, but after a precious wasted moment, she nodded. Okay, go, Zori yelled, and her people fled. Although we don't get to see this scene in the movie, the Art of Star Wars book and the Visual Encyclopedia have artistic drawings of different characters of Kijimi who would be in these cantina and secret hideout areas, or maybe sneaking along the streets. And you can see that some of them wear heavy protective outfits because of the setting's cold weather. By the way, Zori's outfit and helmet also protect from the environment. According to the Star Wars Encyclopedia on pages 142 to 143, her outfit is very thick and hard material. Her suit is temperature-control body glove. And her high-tech helmet not only has sophisticated computer communications, kind of like Iron Man, but also it helps her breathe and adapt to various weather and atmospheres, even unsafe ones. So I'm thinking she's pretty warm and protected in this thing, even at those high elevations. Okay, just one more little extra scene, and this time it's a sad one. In Chapter 11, when General Leia hears the voice of her brother Luke, a wave of weakness washed over her, making her stumble. Leia, came her brother's maddening voice. It's time. I can't, she told him. There's too much to do. She felt his understanding, his love, maybe even a touch of amusement. There is only one thing left, he said, and then you can rest. Dizziness overtook her. She felt herself falling, the edges of the world caving in on her. She was vaguely aware of Connix's arms wrapping around her, boosting her, the lieutenant's worried voice. General! Connix guided her to her quarters. Leia just needed to lie down for a bit. That's all. A very sad moment of foreshadowing there, because Leia feels very weak, dizzy, near faint, and Luke actually tells her it's time, and that after one more thing, she can rest. Definitely hinting to us, the readers or the viewers, that sadly Leia might not survive to the end of this story. Well, we can't end on a sad note like that, so let me mention that today, the day I am releasing this very episode on the web, is May 4th, 2020, which means it is May the 4th be with you day, a day of celebration for all things Star Wars. So, in addition to reading Star Wars books, I also want to recommend some fun online activities that you can do today on Star Wars Day. There are many different activities at StarWars.com, including crafts, quizzes, games, and Star Wars science. And I have listed many more Star Wars activities at a page of multiple links that I'm sending out for free on the Shahala Library website and other social media connections to our students.